The high-winged electric airplane I designed and built over a decade ago has been serving me as my utility aircraft, a test bed for a bunch of different experiments. Originally, it started out as a flap trainer, and ever since I built the airplane, it has had this set of wheels, which have seen excellent service. They're very light. They've got a spongy rubber outside, but as you can see, there's a big chip there, chip out of the rim there. They don't come apart, so they're not really maintainable. They've done an excellent job for me, and I love the white star in the blue circle with the red dot in the middle. So I set out to design a set of replacements for these guys that'll be 3D printed. My goal was to duplicate this wheel in diameter and thickness and make it with 3D printed materials. This would be the first time that I would work with PTEG. I usually work with PLA. That's what this blue is, and the silver here is PTEG. Also, this is going to be my first print with TPU for rubber tires. So, altogether, I was fairly pleased. I got to try two materials that I had not used before. So, I'm going to go over quickly some things that I've learned how to do. All right. This is the back face of the wheel. This is a spacer that goes right here, glues on. All right. Here is the front cover. And here is another spacer which is already glued on. So between these pieces, it'll be two pieces. Right now this is not glued together, so it's technically three, but you put these together and capture a tire. And then you use 5 screws and 5 lock nuts to lock the two halves together. All right, so that's the basics of how this is put together. Okay, now I have a couple criteria. One is I wanted to put bearings in. So here we go. I've made room for, these are 8 millimeter around by 4 millimeter thick with a 3 millimeter inside diameter. That'll fit a 440 screw, and I am going to show you the wheel on my airplane here. Okay, so it's mounted on my utility plane, and there we go. So I've got a lock nut between the wheel and the strut, and then I've got a pair of nuts locking the screw to the strut. Okay, so it's very stiff. If I hit hard, I'll bend the screw, but these screws are replaceable. And I wanted it to be able to have bearings so that I wouldn't have any friction heat wrecking my wheels, my axles. I was not sure. There's some kind of tube in here, it looks like, in the originals, and it lasted a good long time. All right, so here I have a brand new wheel. This is the first generation. I didn't like so much how skinny the red was, so I made it wider, and I like that. But as you can see, it's got a nice roll rate, and it's really smooth. The only downside, which for me is not a problem, this is a very light wheel, the original. This one is probably twice as heavy, but I'm very pleased with how it came out, and I don't mind if they're heavier. I'm in a class of flying where I like the idea of lifting loads and performing tasks, so I want the airplane to be able to lift the weight that I put onto it. All right, so we got a bearing front and back here. We've got 5 M2 by 16 millimeter screws. We've got 5 M2 lock nuts in the back here. And the only other note I'd say is that I used to have a domed backside. It was more like this one, more like the front side. The problem that I ran into was I was losing lock nuts. They would start spinning around. Even if I put more parameters around the hexagon space right there, I was still stripping them out. So I decided to go with an entirely flat, entirely solid backside. And that gives these lock nuts good purchase room, and I can see what's going on with them. So I'm not losing them and having wheel rims that are stuck together because I can't remove the lock nut. So, okay, there we go. That is my 3D printed wheel. Pretty happy with that. And I've flown it on my utility airplane now several times, and their performance is good, and they look good on the ground. I love it. 3D printers, excellent flexibility with accessory items. All right, thanks a lot. See you later.